Hello, and welcome to the Feet on the Soil podcast, the podcast about the world beneath our feet and how we interact with it. On this week's episode, I'm chatting with Nollaig Butler. Nollaig is a social media content creator who focuses mainly on outdoors content in Ireland, with a bit of a focus on sort of wild camping and weekend hikes. I started watching Nollaig a while ago. He released a video about Glenasmall, and that put him straight into my good books. But what really drew me to Nollaig was the way he talked about access to nature. Nollaig's content is great for allowing people to find hikes that are close to them, easy to do, and a great kind of beginner's guide to getting outdoors. In the episode, we talk about accessibility of nature. Everybody should have access to nature, and Nollaig's content exemplifies this. Hikes don't have to be multi-day expeditions which require expensive kit and extensive pre-planning. They can be done after work or with a couple of friends on the weekend on a whim. Another thing that Nollaig talks about a lot on his social media, and we got into in the podcast, is wild camping. While wild camping is an amazing way to really immerse yourself in nature and get a little bit more of that real contact with the natural world, unfortunately in most places in Ireland it's actually illegal, or thought to be that way. We get into that a bit in the episode with Nollaig, but we chat about the benefits of wild camping, how it can be done properly, and a few little tips if you want to give it a try yourself. Myself and Nollaig met in town and recorded this episode in St. Stephen's Green in the middle of Dublin city centre. This is pretty on topic for the episode, showing that even in the middle of Dublin city centre, we can still get a little bit in touch with outdoors. We sat beneath a beautiful mature tree, and while there were birds singing, we also catch a little bit of the city noise. You might hear the Lewis run by or some kids shouting and screaming in the background, but that's all part of it. Myself and Nollaig had a great chat. He's a great person to talk to, and I really hope you enjoy this episode with him. Enjoy. The first question is just, it's a standard one. Just how did the outdoors become a part of your life?
I think I'll probably give the same answer that most people will give to this question, is that it started with my childhood. I was an outdoorsy family. I was really, really lucky. And it's funny because I have a brother who's older than me who's not into the outdoors at all. It's because he was the sports star. He, from mini leagues, you put him on a field and he picked up a hurley and he was away. He was brilliant. So he was the football star, the hurling star and the rugby star. Okay. And I was then kind of second to come along, middle child, and I came along and they were like, okay, there's another sports star in the brewing. They put me on the pitch and I was useless.
Fumbling.
Picking daisies, fumbling, useless. And my parents kind of went, right, well, we've got to do something with him. So I, like many children in Ireland, was put into the Scouts. Okay. And the Scouts was so fundamental for my upbringing, who I am today. I learned so much from it, but that's kind of the grassroots of my passion for the outdoors. The first time being brought up to Larch Hill.
Yes.
For those of you who know it, Larch Hill, the National Scout Centre, and being shown this big open field that had tents and an obstacle course and a forest, and a bunch of adults said, go have fun, here's a penknife, here is a fire lighter, go play with sticks, go climb trees, go pitch tents, go sleep outside. I remember my first time up there being like, wow, this is what I'm meant to be doing. I was only like 6 years old, 7 years old as a cub, and I just remember it starting there. And I was really lucky as well that my dad has kind of been an outdoorsy guy his whole life. He's an angler, he's a fisherman, and his passion has been going to the most obscure beaches across the country. Since he was young, they'd go for weeks on end camping on the end of Inch Beach, if you know it, down in Kerry. Inch Beach, this mile-long beach, and they'd go down to the very, very end of it and camp in the sand dunes with him and a few buddies and some tins of beans, and they'd fish for weeks. So he loved standing outside in the rain, fishing, braving the elements. So he kind of built up this kind of tolerance to the outdoors,
Yeah.
and I guess he passed it on to me. Whereas my brother, he was the sports star. He
didn't need it.
He didn't need it. He was the golden child. I hate using that word, but he was the golden child. Played sports the whole way along, development squads, played for Dublin,
wow.
a sports star. And then there was me. I had to do something at the weekends, so they sent me off to the mountains. So yeah, I'd say in a short sentence, it's a childhood kind of being sent out into the woods is what started it.
Unreal. So, I mean, the one thing, obviously, how I found you was through your TikToks, and one of the things that I found very interesting was the wild camping element. So, Ireland kind of, not historically, but definitely at the moment, has a pretty bad rep with camping. There's very few places where you can do real wild camping. Even the likes of what you were saying about what your dad was doing would kind of be frowned upon at the moment. But looking at your TikToks, I was seeing you in places that I had been before, setting up the tent with, you know, a few friends, and just really enjoying the outdoors, and, you know, I suppose leaving no trace being the main thing. So obviously Scouts got you into camping, but engaging with the outdoors, what do you think that gives you now?
Yeah, so like you said, it started with Scouts, and I loved being in a tent on a roll mat in my sleeping bag. That is when I'm most comfortable. And I suppose if you're a Scout long enough in Ireland, you've camped in every permitted campsite in Ireland. Like, you get through them very quickly. There's not a lot of them, so you have to start thinking outside the box, especially when you leave Scouts. The kind of Rovers exists for people who are in their 20s, but it doesn't really function like that. So it's either stay on as a leader, kind of helping kids learn how to be a Scout, or do what I've done and you kind of go it yourself. And I realized very quickly that there aren't many interesting permitted camping spots, so I said I'd go and kind of figure it out for myself. So it's been a long learning journey of how to wild camp. There's not a lot of resources on it in Ireland, but like, I want to start off by saying wild camping is not permitted in Ireland.
It's not the big thing. It's crazy.
Not permitted, but there's kind of an interesting piece. I'm not sure whether I'd call it legislation, but trespassing also doesn't really exist in Ireland. So you can't accidentally trespass. You have to be trespassed, is my understanding of it anyway. I could be completely wrong, but you're not trespassing until someone asks you to leave.
Right.
So
if you're just on the land.
If I'm just on the land, if I walk into a forest, if I'm on a hike, whether I'm on kind of commonage, which is kind of a lot of the West Coast can be commonage, whether I'm on the high water line around the coast, if I'm in a national park, I'm not trespassing until I'm asked to leave. So wild camping is not strictly permitted. Me wandering off trail for 10 or 12 meters, 30 meters into the kind of woods, setting up my tent after dark, not lighting a fire, using my stove, staying kind of following leave no trace principles, staying out of sight, out of mind of anyone who's in the area. And if I pack up my stuff and leave in the morning and I've left no trace, well then that's okay in my books.
I think so, yeah.
And if someone came along and asked me to leave, I
Happy
would
days.
absolutely comply. If a park ranger said, look, listen, you can't camp here, that's no worries, I'll pack up my tent and I'll leave. If a landowner comes and says, you can't be here, then I can't be there. That's absolutely fine. But from my perspective, until I'm asked to leave and I'm respectful from the moment I get there, I'm not going to come set up in someone's front garden or camp in Glendalough in the middle of the valley, or go to the top of a very popular mountain like Montpellier, like we were talking about earlier. I'm not going to set up a tent in the Hellfire Club. That would be silly.
That's asking to be kicked off.
That would be asking to be kicked off, and that's how people get a bad rep. They kind of go, oh, I like this hiking trail, I'd like to camp here. Or they think of somewhere popular like Glendalough and they say, oh, I'd love to camp here. That's not going to be allowed, and you will be moved on, and that's how you get negative experiences with wild camping in Ireland. But when you put in that little bit of extra effort, use Google Maps, satellite is a thing, we can zoom in on areas. Oh, there's a clearing in that bit of forest there. It's about 50 meters, 100 meters, a kilometer away from the nearest trail. If I set up a tent there, no one's going to come kick me out. And that's when you really start to discover the interesting, cool parts of Ireland. When you get to see those trails at night, when other people aren't there. When you get to wake up in a place that no one else is around you until 10 o'clock when the first car arrives. That's when you really start to enjoy the outdoors here.
And is that the kind of the element of it that you enjoy the most? I mean, like, it's kind of hard to be, it's I'd say impossible to be in wilderness in Ireland. You know, it just doesn't exist. But those moments where it is just you, even on a semi-popular trail, is that the kind of the joy that you get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the Wicklow Way is a perfect example. I've walked the Wicklow Way so many times, but I've also camped it so many times. And during the day, there's lots of day hikers, but at night time,
it's just you.
Everyone goes home. And when the nearest town is either Enniskerry or Roundwood or Lara, There's no lights, there's no sounds, it's just you, and it may be a very popular trail, but sitting at the top of Periscourt Waterfall in a tent by yourself, and the deer are rutting nearby, and the sky is clear, that's a pretty special thing when you're the only one there. And quite recently, I've been able to introduce more people to it. So through the kind of whole social thing, which is very, very new to me, I've been able to kind of bring people along on that adventure, kind of show them like this is possible, it can be done, and I'm what started as a kind of a solo enjoyment of kind of a pursuit of being outdoors. I've realized that it's an incredible thing that needs to be shared. So hopefully that's kind of what I'm trying to do through my content, is share that it is possible to go and do these things.
Unreal. And yeah, I mean, me and you were talking just before recording about how quick your kind of ascent in social media has been. I mean, I was saying that I thought that you had done the classic thing of getting a bit of success and then deleting all of your old posts, but this is a very kind of a new thing to you, really. Like, it's the last 3 months, were you saying?
Yeah, kind of like the last 3 months. It was end of February, March that I kind of decided to put my first public piece of content out there. Like, my friends who are listening to this and who know me, I have been one of the classic Instagram spammers for years. If I'm doing something, I'm probably going to take a photo of it, and you're probably going to see it. But my Instagram has been private for my entire life. So all my school friends and all my college friends, they know me as Nollaig, the outdoorsy guy who goes and sleeps at the top of the mountains for the weekend. But that's who I am in kind of a private way, and I didn't really think anyone would be interested in it. Until I started a new job, and a new group of people kind of came upon my Instagram for the first time. They entered that circle, and they went,
the private circle.
What the hell were you doing last weekend? And I go, I was camping in Cumshingon. What do you mean you were at the top of a mountain? Were you going climbing Everest or something? And they were kind of wowed by this like outdoors. They're like, oh my god, I didn't know places like that existed. I didn't know you could go wild camping. I didn't know hikes like that existed in Ireland. I was like, what do you mean? I thought everyone knew about this. I thought everyone just kind of knew this stuff.
Because you were raised in it,
I was raised
suppose.
in, exactly. Like, wild camping and camping and being in the outdoors and hiking is not a strange concept to me, because it's part of my youth and my foundations. But I've realized recently that that's not something a lot of people have done. And seeing it is quite a jarring thing, especially when it's in Ireland, because we see these videos of Banff in Canada and Australia and the Alps, and you're like, oh, that would be cool if I could do that. But like, when people realize you can do that here, so I kind of said, oh, maybe people would be kind of interested in this. And I kind of have this huge repository of, like, I like taking photos, I like taking videos. Like, when I'm out, a part of it is being out there in nature and connecting, but I do also like capturing moments, and that's something I've kind of been on a personal journey with exploring, is capturing moments and now sharing them. I don't journal or anything like that, but I've always found that kind of photography and videography could be a fantastic journaling method. So I look back fondly on a lot of, oh, I remember that camping trip I did in 2016, or I remember 2010 when I did this, and I've got those photos to remember it. So those photos were always for me. But once I realized people kind of, first of all, were interested, and second of all, might get something out of it, I said, you know what, I'll start making this public. So I posted one video and it got a few likes. I was like, oh, cool.
Happy days.
Happy days. And that's all it was. It was me sharing what I was doing anyway. I'm not going out to capture content. I'm going and pursuing a hobby that I love. And I'm just happen to have a camera in my hand, and I've started sharing that, and people have started to kind of resonate with it, I guess. People have seen it and go, wow, my god, I can do this. And people have started reaching out to me, and people asking for hiking recommendations, kind of gear recommendations. I've realized I've got this huge repository of 25 years of knowledge in the outdoors and the outdoor space, and I've worked in the outdoors industry. And I was like, oh, maybe I do have a story to tell and information to share. So that's kind of the roots of it and how it started.
Yeah, I mean, the last guest we had on was Adam, who is a nature education guide. And his whole thing is that he was really interested in sort of botany. He was very interested in trees mainly. And we had a discussion about how helping educate people about nature can really help them to engage with it a bit more. I think it's amazing now that people like yourself are, you know, not that you're going specifically into the etymology of the name of a flower or anything like that, but you're teaching people that these amazing places in Ireland, they are accessible. They could be an after work walk, even if you are living in the city centre. It's you know, teaching people that nature is accessible. If you're willing to put the work in, you can get to these amazing places. And have you had people kind of getting back to you saying like, oh, I saw your video about whether it be Glenasmole or Loch Tay or anything like that, and they've gone out to it. Have you gotten that kind of engagement?
Yeah, oh definitely. Like the feedback I've gotten has been incredible. Like people discovering new places, and I think maybe it was subconsciously, but maybe I'm going to try to make it a bit more conscious, is that like I want to start a bit of kind of guerrilla environmentalism.
Okay.
I've realized that people don't care about a place until they've seen it or been there. So
Absolutely.
I've got friends who don't care about native trees. And why don't they care about native trees? Because they've never seen them.
Yeah. Oh my.
People have never seen
You're preaching to the
native
choir.
wildland. They go to Wicklow and they see the Sitka spruce plantations and they go, oh, this is beautiful. Look at all the trees. And all I see is a dead, uninhabited. I wouldn't even call it an environment. It's a monoculture.
It's a factory.
It's a factory. Trees in Wicklow are not biodiversity. It's basically a farm with one monoculture. So I suppose through sharing the outdoors, people learn to kind of, once they discover it exists, they want to protect it.
Yeah,
One of my kind of big inspirations is this guy called Robert Powell. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him. He was never a marine biologist or an anthropologist.
Okay.
But he was a bioacoustian, I think. He was kind of like yourself. So he had some sound equipment and he went out to record sounds in nature. So before the 70s, whales were just considered to be big dumb fish.
Okay.
No one ever cared about a whale. They were just big dumb fish that lived in the ocean.
Just kind of floated
people
around.
had no care or thought about them. But he went and he, as a bioacoustian, he recorded the songs of the whales, and he released a record called The Songs of the Humpback Whales. It was a vinyl record released in 1970, and people went, oh my God, these whales are singing. These are sentient creatures who are communicating in magical ways, and it overnight saved the humpback whale population. People went,
wow,
oh my God, these are incredible. And then people realized, oh my God, they're endangered. These beautiful singing creatures of the sea, they could be gone, and my kids might not hear this. And that's why he captured the sounds, was because they were in such high decline that he's like, I need to capture this because no one will.
They might be gone.
They might be gone, and in the
this.
future, people will never know that whales did this.
Jesus.
And he shared that, and it basically, I wouldn't say overnight, but all of a sudden, people realized that these are incredible creatures that need to be saved and protected. So through bringing people to the outdoors or bringing the outdoors to them, they basically saved the humpback whale population. And now if you ask someone what's their favorite animal, 1 in 10 people could say a whale. There's a huge now connection with whales and other animals, people like octopuses, octopi, and dolphins and porpoises. And people have realized these are sentient creatures and they need to be protected. And I think maybe what I'm trying to do is something similar with the Irish outdoors. Okay. Because if you asked a person how much of Ireland is wild still, they'd probably say 50%. I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, 20%. I'd be like, no. And then they'd get a concerned look on their face as the number goes down and down and down. And then you tell them about less than 1% of Irish land use is considered wild.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought, that less than 1% of our beautiful native island of Ireland, this rock in the middle of the Atlantic that is a hub of biodiversity and incredible animals and wildlife and flora and fauna, only 1% of it is wild. Yeah. And that 1% can very quickly turn into 0%.
That 1% is not exactly healthy 1%.
No, that's a struggling, damaged...
On its last legs. So if I can show people, okay, yes, hiking is incredible, wild camping is incredible, but it's only incredible if you can do it in incredible places. So my kind of goal is to show people the outdoors, show them that it's accessible, that it can be done, it can be enjoyed, but it should be done in leave no trace principles, and what more can we do to probably protect it? Wow, yeah, okay. That's sort of guerrilla environmentalism. So you're kind of doing that by both kind of capturing this to retain it for kind of future generations, hopefully, and then also to kind of allow people to engage with and care through their phone screens, but then also to kind of take it beyond that and actually get out into it.
Absolutely. If someone goes on a hike through seeing one of my videos, and they, whether it's the local park or it's their local hill or the local mountain, or they make the trek down to Kerry to go Carrantoohil, whatever spectrum of hiking the outdoors they start to enjoy, any environmentalists I know are people who spend time in the outdoors. They're directly linked. There's a correlation there, and I think if people spend more time outdoors, they'll begin to care more. So it's not about preaching and education and, oh, we're destroying the planet. If people just see what they're potentially going to lose, they'll inherently start to care more, I think.
So actually that leads on pretty well to the next question. So we were kind of talking a little bit beforehand, and you've kind of mentioned in there as well just about how a lot of people see the beauty of kind of landscapes around the world, whether it's like you said the Alps or the large national parks in America. And you know, I'd definitely be guilty of this and say like, you know, oh, I wish I was able to live there and get out into that real kind of wilderness. But we do, as much as we were talking about, there's less and less of it. We do have that out there. So I just wanted to kind of talk, you've done a bit of traveling in the past, and I just wanted to ask you about your kind of connection to landscape when you're in Ireland versus when you're in other areas. The podcast, of course, we talk about nature, but also the kind of spiritual aspect of it. I don't know if that's something that you're like really into, but I suppose, do you find that you have more connection to the landscape you grew up in rather than one in another country?
I think 100% yes. Like, I've got a fear graw for the kingdom down in Kerry. Like, I remember being a child down on the Dingle Peninsula. I've got family down there, and we're really lucky to have a house down there, and there's honestly no place like it. Being in Smurrick Harbour down on the Dingle Peninsula, it's an incredible part of the world. And then you've got the Reeks, incredible mountains. Like, we are truly, truly blessed to be this island in the middle of the Atlantic with incredible landscapes, whether it's mountains, whether it's rivers, where it's the ocean. Like, we've got this rock meeting the sea, the power of the Atlantic. We've got incredible stuff here, but people honestly don't know about it, and it's kind of nearly an ignorant don't know about it. It's the kind of, Ireland is shite, there's nothing to do here, and they open their phone and they look at photos of Banff or the Alps or Australia or these incredible places, and they are incredible, and I want to visit them myself,
of course,
but they get caught up in the grass is greener, and the grass is pretty green here.
We're kind of known for it.
The grass is pretty green here, and I'm very lucky. I've done quite a lot of traveling. I think I've done 32 countries.
Damn. Okay.
I've done Southeast Asia, I've done the Americas, I've done a lot of Europe. And I still come home and I go, wow, we are blessed to be from this incredible island. And I go to these places, and the locals would say to me, oh my God, Ireland, I would love to go there. The people who are there have the same problem. They wish they could come to Ireland. They wish they were from this beautiful temperate climate, the greenery, the foliage, the landscapes, the wildlife. Like, we are blessed. And I definitely have quite a, if you'd call it spiritual, emotional, religious, I don't know what bracket it falls under, but I definitely have a special connection to Ireland that when I go elsewhere, I miss home, and I've got a fear graw for home, and I want to maybe inspire people to, through seeing Ireland and how much it can be enjoyed, maybe stop this whole, I want to move to Australia because there's nothing to do here. There's so much to do here. You just need to maybe wear a rain jacket for most of it, which is fine, especially the sea. Being from an island, it's so surprising to me how much we're disconnected from the sea. The Irish people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years relied on the sea for everything, for our trade, for our food, for our transport. The sea was fundamental to being Irish, and I don't know whether it was the introduction of kind of commercialism and capitalism that disconnection started. Irish people have become very disconnected from the sea, and I've seen a reversal in that recently. Definitely. I think since COVID.
Yes,
when people realised they couldn't just be dreaming of their sunny holiday in Spain, I guess I've got to go sea swimming, and the huge surge in sea swimming and water sports and people enjoying the Irish outdoors, staycations, people have started to reconnect with it, but I've got a very special connection with the sea. I'm very lucky. I grew up on the north side of Dublin, beside the sea, in Sutton, so I've seen the sea every morning of my life, and the other side of the coast, when I go down to Dingle, the sea is right there. So I've had a really special connection with the water. My dad has kind of taught me this connection with the life that lives in that water, the fishing. So the angling isn't about take. It's about kind of respecting the sea, the art of going and catching fish to support and kind of sustain yourself. It's kind of taught me a respect for the sea. It's a thing to be underestimated, but also kind of a love for it. And I think this boiled up, and I really noticed how much I love the sea was when I was in Arizona. I went to the deserts of Arizona.
Not much water there.
Not much water there at all. And I was there for 2 weeks, and oh my God, I've never craved seeing the water so much. It was insane. I was nearly itching to get home, and like I did the classic, got off the plane. I was like, God, I'm home. Thank God, this little island by the sea, the smell of the sea air, and I ran into the ocean. And then again, when I was living in Seoul, I lived in Seoul, South Korea for 6 months, and again, a very urban metropolis, big huge city, and it's incredible, and some people love that. But I found myself after a number of months getting the itch, getting the scratch. I was about to break out into something. And when I went down to Busan in the south of Korea, when I reached the sea, I stripped basically
Just
naked, ran
dived
straight into the water. The locals were like, "What's he doing? It's January. It's minus 12 degrees and he's swimming," but I didn't care.
Doesn't matter, I need
It
the
doesn't
water.
matter, I need the water. So yeah, I definitely say like I've got a very special connection with this little island in the middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah, amazing. That connection to the ocean is really special. Like, I'd put my hand up, I'm I'm afraid of the sea. I have never swam in the sea. I've gone to like knee depth, but it's something that I definitely want to reconnect with. I've been reading that book by Richard Nairn, the Wild Shores, and learning about kind of what you're saying, that the reliance that people had with the ocean for so many years, and like that, with that reliance there was like a reverence. It wasn't take. It wasn't trawling the bottom of the ocean for every last fish. It was, I take what I need to feed my family and then I leave. I respect that there's more there, but I'm not going to take it. And I think that's really special. And I think it's, like you said, it's amazing that during COVID people realized how, I mean, we had this actual physical proximity that we couldn't leave. And so many people realized that within their 2, 5 or 10 kilometers they had access to the ocean. Is that a big part of kind of, you were saying about using photography or videography as journaling and helping kind of, I suppose, with mental health? Is the ocean and water a big part of that as well?
I wouldn't be the way I am or as positive or have as good an outlook on life if I wasn't as connected as I am with nature. I think, like, as a society we've become very disconnected from nature, and it's I saw a very funny video on TikTok. It was if you took a penguin out of the Arctic and you put him into the Sahara, and he got really stressed, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, silly,
there's something wrong with this penguin.
Silly, anxious penguin, take more tablets, you'll feel better." Just because you're in the wrong environment for you, that's not the cause of it. It's you're the problem. No, you'd be like, the penguin is in the wrong environment, we need to return him to his natural environment. And I'm a firm believer in that, and that's the best way I've ever heard someone kind of explaining it, that for literally millions of years we have had a fierce connection with the outdoors and the sea and nature, and that's only in the last 100 years. And people call it progress and civilization. Some people would argue that maybe it's not the best thing for us. But I would say, on a spectrum of people I know, the people who are connected with nature and spend time in the outdoors are far more resilient than people who aren't. And obviously both, like, just because I'm outdoors doesn't mean I'm happy. Just because I'm outdoors doesn't mean I can't get depressed. Of course I can. And just because someone doesn't go outdoors doesn't mean they can't be happy. But on the kind of the broader spectrum of things, I think I'm a much happier person when I'm outdoors. When I throw my bag on and I know I'm heading for an adventure, when I've got my tent with me, when I've got my stove, when I've got a thing of pot noodles, and I know I'm going to spend the next few days in the woods, swimming in a river or hiking a mountain or seeing a place I haven't seen before, that just does wonders for my mental health. So I would say it's fundamental to who I am, and I would not be as resilient as I am without the outdoors.
Amazing. One thing I saw that I thought was pretty amazing there just recently was you posted a TikTok about your experience with the crewman, the kind of the group hike.
Yes,
So I mean, I like you would love throwing the bag on and going outside, whether that be for a run or a hike or whatever it is. But I'm on my own doing it, and there's a lot of loneliness in the modern world. And while the outdoors is great, a lot of the time it's not a group activity.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of things going on at the moment, whether it be that crewman activity, and there's a lot of group C swims. There's a lot of stuff where you're getting outdoors, but you're with a group of people.
Kind of the context for that for me is that I've always been someone who enjoyed the outdoors alone, because I didn't think anyone else was into it.
I get that.
I came from a pretty small circle of friends, and everyone comes free with one hike. Free, and they turn up and like, "Oh, hey, do you want to go for a hike?" "Yeah, sure." And then they come for one, and then I'm like, "Do you want to go again next weekend?" They're like, "Oh wait,
not so much.
I thought you said we were going for a hike." I was like, "Yeah, but do you want to go again?" They're like, "No, I did that like once, I'm done now."
That's my year.
And you get through all those friends pretty quickly. So all of a sudden it's you and your bag who go camping. So I've like done a lot of solo adventuring, and I think I'm now realizing how good it's been for me and how good it would help other people. And I didn't realize these kind of groups existed until really recently. I'm not very while I wasn't very social media savvy, I didn't know these kind of, even like the hike life with Ross Purcell. I was pretty new to finding out about that. I'm not gonna lie. I was late.
Even my mom is on that.
I was late to the party on that one. I just didn't know they existed until I started posting content, and kind of I trained my For You page about what I was posting, and it kind of showed me similar stuff, and I went, oh my god,
there's so much out there.
There's so much out there. There's so many outdoor content creators. There's so many outdoors groups. This is incredible. I'm not alone. It's funny.
It's a nice
you find
feeling.
other groups of people who are interested in the things you're interested in. So specifically to your question, the Crewman hike, it was my first time joining them at the weekend, and it was a brilliant experience. The idea promoting mental and physical health through the outdoors is an incredible mission to bring guys together in a healthy environment, in a positive environment, to get them just talking. If you walk up a mountain beside someone,
you have to chat.
You're gonna chat.
Yeah.
You're gonna get through the shit. You're gonna get through the what do you do, and you're gonna get through the where are you from, and you're gonna get into by the top of that mountain where you're a little tired, and you start talking and talking and talking. You get to be a bit vulnerable with someone you might not have been otherwise if you'd been sitting in a pub, or doing something kind of a standard activity. And I think bringing guys together in a safe space where everyone is there with the same intent. There's no kind of therapist in the corner. It's a bunch of guys
just chatting,
just going for a walk together. And sometimes that's really, really, really powerful. Just a bunch of guys in a no pressure environment, no stress environment, going for a walk together. And it's a thing guys wouldn't do otherwise.
No,
it needs to
not
be,
a chance.
It needs to be in a kind of formal setup like the Crewman. I wouldn't just get a group of friends together and go for a hike as much as I'd love to, because they're just
a real Irish thing, isn't it? Like
exactly.
you don't want to put someone out by asking them to come along. Like you're like, oh, they wouldn't want to, they have other things to be doing. But
whereas when it's this kind of the format of where it's the Dublin Boys Club or the Crewman, where hey guys, we're gonna go for this group hike, it's a social event, you're more than welcome to come along alone or with a friend, meet strangers with the intent of exploring kind of positive masculinity in a healthy environment where you can talk about things that are important to you, share your stories, share experiences with other men. And I think it's worked really well for the kind of women's outdoors communities. Gals Gone Wild, huge shout out to them. They're incredible. And I'm really glad to see that start to happen for men now, because men's mental health it's a huge issue in Ireland. Like 3 in 4 suicides being men is something that it needs to end. And I think this is it's not the solution, but it's definitely a band-aid that will help.
Yeah, I mean, like during COVID, I've talked about it before. Before I was doing kind of environmentalism stuff, I was studying film and was kind of working as a photographer and stuff like that. So during COVID, the job stopped coming, and there was a group called Ireland Analog. I don't know if you've ever seen them. It was a fantastic group. It was organised by a fellow called Mark from Canada. And the first, I think, Sunday of every month, we used to just go out for a hike or a walk somewhere, all with our cameras. And like, of course you wanted to get some nice photos, of course you wanted to go for the hike, but like that, you were, you'd say your name, you'd say what you worked as, you'd say, oh, COVID's shite, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just because you were walking, you had to focus on one foot in front of the other, you just started talking to people and talking about stuff that like you might not talk to your friends about.
Yeah.
You might not talk to, like you said, a therapist about in a really formal environment, but you're just chatting. And it was, honestly, during COVID, it was an absolute savior for people. And I for a lot of people as well, it was kind of their first time really engaging with the outdoors. Were there any people on the Crewman hike that it was kind of either not so much their first time being outdoors, but they're very new to it, and this was kind of an introduction?
It definitely wasn't a group of mountaineers anyway.
Yeah.
This was definitely people who saw it as a medium to talk and meet other guys, because there isn't really a lot of, unless you are a sports star, unless you have the football team or the rugby team or the rowing team, unless you fall into one of those traditional categories of being a man in Ireland, men's groups don't really exist. And it's fantastic, like you said, kind of a photography group, something that's a bit more kind of hobby based as opposed to sport based, and the hiking. So I think there were definitely people who were there for the connection aspect of it, which was really, really nice to see. People weren't just there to put on the boots and go for a hike. People were there to meet other guys and be in a positive, healthy environment that they knew there'd be no judgment. They knew it was just a walk up a hill with some lads, and it was really, really enjoyable. So huge shout out to Crewman. They're fantastic.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I'd seen them, but I haven't kind of been able to to get up to them. Not having a car is a big thing,
Yeah.
you know. The other thing I wanted to ask then was just, like you said, you kind of were taking photos and videos in the outdoors, kind of regardless. Like you said, as a almost like journaling, which I hadn't thought of that before, but I really like that as a way of kind of taking down a moment. But how have you found it now, where I know social media isn't your job, but I know even for myself, I do feel that kind of, if I'm outside somewhere, I'm like, oh, I should really be making content, because that's the kind of the thing I do now. Do you find, like, has that altered the way that you capture moments outside, or are you continuing as you were? Do you feel like you owe it to people to capture, or is it still just for yourself?
There's definitely more of an expectation now around it, that if I go for a hike, there's people kind of expect that there's going to be content about it. But I've had a lot of these discussions with my friends, and if you talk to one of my friends, Jack, he'll attest to it. He said, we had this conversation the other day, and we got to the end of a hike we did together, and he turned around to me, he was like, "Nollaig, did you not take any photos of that?" And I go,
No.
I took a few. And then I ended up posting kind of photos, and he went, "Nollaig, how did you when did you take these?" Or how? And that's because I do it on my phone. If I see a beautiful moment, I take out the phone, I snap it, and I put the phone away. It's not the only thing I think about when I'm in the outdoors. I'm not there to get the shot, to capture it and to sell it online and commercialize the outdoors. Like, that's not what I'm there to do. I love capturing moments, like I said. It's kind of like a photo journal. I love looking back on these moments for me, and it's fantastic now that other people are interested in that, but it'll still always be for me first and foremost. And I've got, my camera roll is full of stuff that I haven't posted.
Okay.
I've gone, like, I won't be posting all my wild camping spots.
That's good. Yeah, keep some for yourself.
A lot of this is being kept for me. Some people are like, "Oh no, like, where's the good spots?" I was like,
I'm not telling you.
those are staying good spots, and they're good spots because you don't know about them.
But I mean, that's definitely part of it. I mean, you have to protect these spots.
Exactly, and I've definitely seen the negative impacts of a place getting maybe too popular. Like,
Lockdown.
I'm definitely in the I'm always torn between this. The outdoors is to be shared, but when a thing is shared, it's ruined.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be a gatekeeper. Who am I to gatekeep? If I found it, someone else can find it. But that's how I rationalize it. I found it by myself. You can too.
Yeah.
If you really want to go find the best camping spots in Ireland,
You'll do it.
You can go and do it. If you really want to find these incredible, niche, untouched, beautiful landscapes in Ireland, you have the power to go and do it. I didn't have a car until last week.
Yeah.
I've used public transport for 25 years, and I've wild camped the entire length and breadth of this country. I only got my driver's license last week. Shout out to me for passing my driving test.
Round of
25
applause.
years, round of applause. 25 years without a driver's license, and I've wild camped all over Ireland.
That's pretty interesting. That's
public
crazy.
transport does exist. It's just a walk away from where you want to be.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you want a wild camp, be okay with walking for 3 or 4 hours on a road before you get to the start of the trail. And if you really want to do it, you can do it. It's fantastic that I do have the car now, and I'll be able to get to more of the spots kind of that public transport doesn't support, say kind of like Donegal. I'm really excited to explore places like that. But I'm definitely torn between the whole, I don't want to gatekeep, but also I want to protect places, because you see what happens when a place gets popular. It's not that it brings negative people, it's just there's
just more chance for a bad thing to happen.
Yeah, if 1 in 100 people leave litter or damage a place, if 100 people go there, 1 person might do it. But if 1,000 people go there, 10 people might do it. And if 10,000 people, it goes up and up. So while the percentage of people is small, it still grows proportionally with the more popular a place gets. And it's unfortunate that people don't have respect for the outdoors. People say they love hiking in the outdoors, but they'll leave the wrappers from their lunch on the top of a mountain, which is just, it's vile. Or they leave scorch marks where they camp, and they leave cans and they leave tents. And so, to be honest with you, it's not my job to share the outdoors. I'm not I owe nothing to anybody. Because I post some videos about wild camping and hiking doesn't mean it's my job to tell you where to go to wild camp. I'm sharing what I think people would like to see, what people would like to enjoy, and what I enjoy first and foremost. This is like my moments that I'm sharing with you, and it's always going to be for me at the end of the day. So kind of to the answer to the question, it's definitely changed a little bit of the way I look at kind of capturing the outdoors. I kind of want to improve the way I do it.
Okay. So but even that's still for yourself.
It's still
not
for
for
me.
the public.
So like I went from having an Android before And before I went traveling during the summer, I said, I'll buy an iPhone because that's got a nice camera.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to airdrop to my girlfriend. So we have nice photos and we can send them to each other. So I now have these kind of higher resolution photos that are for me and for my girlfriend. And we've made a photo book now, and we've got these beautiful moments captured. And this isn't a videoed podcast, but sitting beside me for the audience is a Cons camera bag. Shout out to Cons Camera. That inside of it is sitting a brand new mirrorless camera.
That I'm very jealous of.
That'll
be
be
beautiful
used
camera
to capture all these special, beautiful moments going forward. So while it's still for me,
expect that cinematic content.
Expect that cinematic, beautiful shot of the mountains, the close-up, the lenses. It's going to be incredible. But it's for me at the end of the day. But yeah, so I definitely have thought about how I capture it. I want to maybe, because I see the incredible works of the likes of Tiger Bryan and Josh Nueva, who are incredible Irish videographers and photographers, and they go to these beautiful places and capture them in a way that almost brings kind of it captures the magic of the place better than a phone does.
Absolutely.
And sometimes if I'm trying to share a moment,
it's not the same on the phone.
It's not the same on the phone. And if I'm really going to share these places, that's what my intent is with the new camera. And I want to maybe just kind of up my game a bit. I'm beginning to enjoy the photography aspect of it, the videography aspect. And yeah, I'm going to kind of start to pursue that. But it's definitely, while it's still for me, I do still feel that kind of weight of, I should probably post a video, shouldn't I?
I get that. And then I suppose we'll wrap it up here now with the question that I've been kind of asking everybody now, which is, at the moment, and like I said, Adam, it changes for me hour to hour. What is your favorite place in the outdoors? So it can be as broad as an ecosystem, a river, the ocean, or a forest, or you can give us a really exact location, but just whatever at the moment is really pulling you in.
I've got a few exact locations, but I think you'll forgive me for not sharing those.
That's okay, absolutely.
The nature of my kind of outdoorsiness, being wild camping, I won't share those, but what I'm really connecting with at the moment is the kind of rivers and streams of Ireland. I've gotten kind of back in touch with fly fishing.
Okay.
It's a bit of a lost art. Well, it's lost to me anyway. I'm not very good at it, but fly fishing is a fantastic way of spending a lot of time outdoors. It's a bit faffy. You get your knots, your line in a knot, and it's very particular. It's a hard skill, so I'm trying to master the skill, but it's bringing me to places in Ireland that I might not have gone to before. I used to drive past on the bus, look down at a small piddly stream, that's just a little stream. But now I see it, I'm like, oh my god, this is this magical ecosystem that could possibly have a brown trout in it, or a rainbow
which
trout,
is your
or
mission
some
at the
perch.
moment.
And my mission at the moment, like we talked about before the podcast, is catching a brown trout. But I'm seeing these ecosystems in a brand new way. My dad is a sea fisherman, so it was always bass. It's big sea fishing, so that's where my eyes always went. So when I saw the coastline, I said, there's probably a bass sitting out there in that corner. Or if there was a kind of rocky alcove, I'd be like, there's a little pollock sitting there, and I'd know how to catch him. But when I went past rivers in the past, it's like, that's just a little stream. It's probably got some runoff in it, and it's probably horrible. But now I go past these little streams, and I'm like, there's a beautiful ecosystem there. And I've stood in plenty of these now over the last number of weeks, and I see the fantastic kind of the plants that line these kind of banks. I'm like, I don't recognize that plant. I'm not usually standing here. And I look up at the trees, and I look at the mayflies hatching, and I look at the fish in the streams. So kind of I've discovered a new ecosystem that has been around me this whole time, but I'm seeing it through different eyes. And fly fishing is a tool that's brought me there, kind of in the same way that hiking is what brought me to the outdoors in the first place. I think hobbies are a really good entry point to the outdoors, whether it's photography or hiking or camping or fishing. It's a way to connect with the space, not just the hobby.
Beautiful. Well, that's great. We'll wrap it up here. So if you want to just kind of shout out your different social media platforms at the moment, it's Nollaig Butler on everything,
is it? Yeah, it's Nollaig Butler. I've never done one of these
I know.
Actually. You said that, do you want to do a shout out? And I was like, oh my god, someone just asked me to do a shout out for my socials. So thanks for listening, guys. My name's Nollaig Butler. You can find me at Nollaig Butler on Instagram or at Nollaig Butler on TikTok. I post outdoorsy, hiking content and lifestyle, whether it's wild camping or hiking. And just kind of showing how magical the Irish outdoors is, and that's where I do it. So at Nollaig Butler on all my socials, and see you guys over there.
Perfect. Thank you for listening, and try and get outside today.